Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Reece Shearsmith, whom my North American listeners may recognize from his appearances in Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, or from Ben Wheatley's A Field in England and High Rise, or that one episode of Doctor Who. And of course, my UK listeners will know him as a member of the League of Gentlemen, alongside Mark Gatiss and Steve Pemberton. Shearsmith and Pemberton then made the series Psychoville, and their latest collaboration is an anthology show called Inside Number 9, which just finished its third series on BBC Two. Reece picked Theatre of Blood, Douglas Haycock's 1973 tale of horror about a stage actor who returns from the grave to exact a literally Shakespearean vengeance on the critics who failed to fully appreciate his genius. With a bravura performance from Vincent Price as the murderous Edward Lionheart, and a supporting cast loaded with talent that includes Ian Hendry, Jack Hawkins, Michael Horder, and Robert Morley, Coral Brown, Diana Dors, Eric Sykes, Milo O'Shea, and an almost unrecognizable Diana Rigg, this is a film that overflows with baroque delight, and also bloody mayhem, as it must. This is Someone Else's Movie.
Well, this film, like Jaws or King of Comedy, it's one of those films that for me, if it's on late nights any time, I can't not watch it. You know, you turn it on and you've got to watch it through and it's been sort of in my life and with me as long as I can remember. I think I probably saw it too early to see it. I think I was probably 9 or 10 or something. Late night on BBC Two when we used to have these horror double bills, so there'd be a Universal and then there'd be a Hammer, or a colour film about 1 a.m.
Oh, so the more scary, really old classics.
Yeah, classic pairings. And Theatre of Blood was I think one night in 1970 something. And it just I remember it was the Arthur Lowe head cutting off, the Cymbeline murder, that was the thing that really stayed with me, and Michael Horden as well, the first death, which is so grim and real, and he's cut to shreds through this sheet of plastic.
Oh, yes.
So grubby and horrible, and it really stayed with me. But it was sort of elegant, it was so elegantly done. The pairing of the comedy, the sort of intelligence of the Shakespeare, and the sort of segmented portmanteau almost feel of the killings, you know, which is it's always appealed to me. The Dr. Phibes films are the same.
I was about to say, I was sure that this preceded the Phibes films, but it actually comes after them.
That's right, yeah. Phibes was 70 or 71.
71 and 72.
Yeah. And this is another one, yeah. It's almost like it's not like a parody of it, but he'd done that sort of film already, Vincent Price. Mm-hmm. And he, of course, is brilliant in it. I mean, and to get to see him do the Shakespeare, where I think he probably, he absolutely relished it. And that cast, I mean, what a cast. Apparently they all ran round one another, asking, are you doing it? I'll do it then. And so that's how they sort of got the upper echelons of all these great character actors. And it's a lovely idea. It's just very, very well written. And it's something we've striven for in our work since. I mean, the comedy and the horror, sort of the reality of the horror. I mean, yes, it's all very heightened, but it's all very real, and I think at the heart of it, I absolutely love it because it's exactly how I am Edward Lionheart. So I really feel the passion of his, you're on his side all the time. You want these horrible critics to get their just desserts, and it's so delicious that they, in turn, have these horrible murders that are not sort of, it's quite, people think, I think if you remember or ask people to remember Theatre of Blood, they think it's quite a campy film, and that's attributed to Vincent Price and Coral Brown and those people, but ultimately it's very nasty as well. There's some really horrible killings in it. I think it's quite daring. It must have been at the time.
Well, yeah, horror removed from its context is always going to be odd, if not necessarily directly translating into camp. But there are things about Theatre of Blood, like the Diana Rigg costumes, the disguises that are, Jeff Lynne is running around helping Vincent Price kill people. It's very distracting.
That's right, yes. It's the meth drinkers themselves are a disturbing pack, aren't they? Yeah.
Because I know the meth drinkers from Withnail and I. That's where I'd heard about the wankers on the meths.
Right, yeah.
I had no understanding that this was a real thing.
A thing, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And even having seen theater, I'm sure I saw Theatre of Blood before I saw Windmill and I still didn't connect the two.
Yeah, that pack of hounds that that are sort of like, they are sort of the baying mob, and how they're disguised in each segment.
Yes, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, yeah. And that brilliant bit when they're in the when Robert Coote goes for his wine tasting as Oliver Larding.
Yeah.
And they're all there, sort of all dressed up like toffs, and yet completely pissed and drinking their purple drinks. It's horrible. It's sort of so out of control, and yet they've got this mob mentality, and you see how the way they turn on in the end and kill Diana Rigg and just smash her head in with the Critics Circle Award. Mm-hmm. This sort of you sort of get this feeling that they're really brilliantly cast, each one of them. They all look really great, and there was even is it Lutty Lemkow? That's his name. You know his face. Yeah, you know his face. He was in a lot of. I think he's in a Bond film. He's in lots of other stuff, but he crops up in that pack as well.
Yeah. And the woman who choreographed the activities,
yes,
leads.
That's right. Yeah, she's there. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, I think it's almost balletic those killings and their that little pack of them is great, and it's a really fascinating time as well. The look of London in the 70s, the start of the National Theatre just coming up in the 70s, and it's a very sort of grim looking film. I mean, quite singular in all of its location, which I think is interesting. None of it is any sets. It's all filmed in various places. A lot of them have gone now. The Burbage Theatre where he kills Hector Snipe, the Putney Hippodrome, I think, which is gone now, but were beautiful sets, and really, I think, very handsomely filmed for a horror. And Robert Morley, fantastic in the camp role of of Meredith Merridew when he's killed, being made to eat his dogs. But I mean, I think it stayed with me because it's hard to do, and what we've done and tried to do often in our work is that fine line of sort of releasing tension with a laugh, and that I think that's a difficult thing that I think it gets right, and it's properly grim when it's grim, and then it's very funny with these performances. They all have a twinkle in their eye. These people that play in the Critics Circle, and it's very enjoyable to watch, I think.
Yeah, and it lets you root for them. It lets you root for their suffering.
Absolutely,
in a way that maybe it wouldn't if they were sympathetic characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great scene when you first see them. It's in the midway through the film. There's something very haunting, very moving about this scene. The way where Ian Hendry remembers the day when they'd given the Critics Circle Award not to Vincent Price, and they'd given it to the brilliant young actor William Woodstock. And Price turns up at the drinks afterward in an apartment very much like the one we're in now, and he demands the award because he thinks he should have won it. And they're all back again, and 3 of them have already died, so it's quite strange to see them all together.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you sort of see sort of each one in a line reveal their characters. It's really cleverly done. He wants another drink. He's leering at the secretary, and it's very sort of thumbnail sketches of each one of their flaws, but you sort of see it very deftly done. The script is great. It's a very witty script, I think, to incorporate all the Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But I've been obsessed with it forever. I try to find the poster of Lionheart's final season, which are all the killings in order, that sort of thing. And there's a brilliant bit at the end when he's got Ian Hendry and he's doing King Lear and he's going to blind him like Gloucester, and and all of the circle are back, or the meth drinkers are pretending to be the circle with these cardboard cutout faces. And they're brilliant, and I wish you could get them. Just I've got a doll of Lionheart which you can buy, a little dummy, Action Man dummy. But in this day and age where you can get everything, you would have thought that by now someone would have sought out those printed masks, and I would be the first one to purchase them.
It is strange that both Theatre of Blood and the Fives films have sort of retreated or receded, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not a kind of horror that is popular anymore. Yeah. Although the self-aware aspect of it made me think of Scream a number of times.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the dread of the victim realizing that this is it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the sort of the glee the killer takes. And now we have a tradition of either faceless silent murderers, or unknowable infestation alien creature things.
Of course, yeah. There's something a bit in them in the sort of episodic nature of it as well. That's a bit Final Destination.
Oh, that's
in
true.
the deaths.
Yeah.
And even Saw in a way where they how's he going to kill this one? You know,
Yeah.
and it's like Acme, isn't it? With the Final Destination ones. I asked, I think on Twitter, I said, can someone put one of the Final Destination deaths to Powerhouse? You know, the music from the Acme cartoons, and someone did it, and it fitted perfectly. It was brilliant.
I was not surprised.
It was completely fitted.
I've talked to a few of the people who've made the Final Destination
Right.
movies, or who've acted in them rather.
Yeah.
And they said that it basically are like they are these Rube Goldberg machines
Absolutely,
now.
yeah.
Where or what's the UK equivalent? There's what's his name? The designer of the insanely complex.
Yes, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Rube Goldberg completely. Yeah, and it's just what elaborate.
Yeah.
And also sort of second guessing the audience, thinking this is going to happen.
Exactly.
It's been a new thing.
Well, that's when they started to
takes you by
have fun with
surprise.
it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I find the Saw films really frustrating because every new one involves rewriting the old one.
Yes, they're the
Retcon
kind of strange Chinese puzzle boxes, aren't they? You think it's all sort of existential of the other one. Yeah, it's like a Russian doll.
Yeah.
And the first two, I think, were quite clever. I literally lost track. There was one where they were in a house, and I was thinking, is this like an annex of all the other Saw films? They're in the same building, but not quite. I completely was baffled.
I think, yes. I think in the end it turns out that it's all... I mean, I love the idea that it's all one mall.
Yes,
Because 3 and 4, I think, were the ones that are happening together, and 2 is happening just after.
Right.
And it's the big loop. And all you can think of is that for a man with terminal brain cancer, this guy was busy. He's burning the candle at 3 ends.
Yes, yeah. But we did something, I mean, not similar, but we had the puzzle when we did Psychoville, which is our series, sort of inspired by the box set idea of really wanting to write a cliffhanger each week, and then you couldn't wait to watch the next one. It was when I was obsessed with 24 when it was good. And we had the puzzle of writing a Halloween special in the middle of series 1 and 2 without really advancing the plot, because we knew that everything had to be back as it was for the start of series 2. So what do we do with this middle thing that's going to happen to be an hour long? And we hit upon the idea of it being... You watch these 3... It was a sort of a portmanteau again. We did 3 stories. On Halloween night, these kids were trying to break into the abandoned mental hospital that was in Psychoville. And then we came up with the idea that it was all happening in the run-up to the end of the first series. So it's like we hadn't moved on any. We actually were
So it's just parallel.
In parallel, yeah. And we arrived back at the same point, so we hadn't moved on. It was a neat way of not having to advance the plot for that reason. But similar to, I think, what Saw do, isn't it? Where they sort of unravel each time, come out of, you're sort of seeing a bit more of the picture.
Yeah, I think by the end of it looks like a Pollock painting.
Yeah, is he still in it? The man, what's he called?
Tobin Bell.
Tobin Bell, yeah.
He died at the end of 3, but he's still around.
How does he manage it?
He's been really open about saying that they just keep asking him. I mean, I interviewed him once.
Oh, right, okay.
It was one of the strangest interviews I've ever done because I couldn't see the film. It was some Comic-Con fan expo thing. He was in town and they were holding a day for a film that wouldn't open for 2 months.
Right.
And probably wasn't done. Given how quickly they produced them.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk to Tobin Bell? I'm like, yeah, sure. What can we talk about?
Yeah.
And of course, you can talk about anything because there are, I think this was for 5.
Wow.
And so there were 4 behind it. And we just talked about it. And he said, I just assume I'm going to come back to Toronto in the spring and shoot one of these things until they tell me to stop.
Wow. And he's happy to do that.
And he did 2 more.
Wow.
And supposedly in this next one, which I think is called Saw Legacy,
right,
there will be a character returning. And of course, how could it not be him?
Yeah.
Or in some way.
I saw one when he was absolutely dead and there was a tape recording in his stomach or something.
Yes, that's 4.
Right, okay.
Which I saw here. I saw that in London.
Right,
I was a juror for the London Film Festival, and I had to go. It still remains the most expensive ticket I've ever bought for a movie.
Wow.
So I had to go see it opening night or the Saturday at the midnight show in Leicester Square.
Wow, yeah.
And it was something like £15.
Oh my God,
and it was not worth it.
Yeah.
I saw it with 8 other people who were willing to do that. And they were disappointed. That was the thing. Like, I had to be there.
Yeah.
They had chosen it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. But it does make me think about the impossibility of remaking a Theatre of Blood now without some sort of device, because the other thing that's missing from contemporary horror, I think, is the concept of punishment.
Yeah.
And that's what Fibes does. And
Absolutely. I mean, revenge is the best plot device, and it's always delicious to see.
Yeah. And insanely worked out.
Yeah.
Impossible to escape.
Impossible to escape, yeah, that's it. And it's always, when it's very satisfying to see people being picked off, and especially if they're deserving.
Mm-hmm.
And
as a film critic myself, I find him I did find watching it again the other night, I got a little defensive.
I bet you would, yeah.
But I wrote it off by saying that they're theatre critics.
Yes, of course, it's a different world.
They're different. But it's remarkable how the audience is never on the side of a critic.
I don't think there's anybody really in it that's without redemption you're not expected to be on anyone's side. Perhaps Ian Hendry's character, who's sort of the most, tries to argue the case. He has the voice of the rational. He tries to, as he says of Lionheart, he only ever played Shakespeare, and a truly great actor illuminates the present as well as the past. He says, which is to goad him into the 20th century.
Yeah, it is a beautiful speech. It's also completely overstates the responsibility of the critic.
Absolutely,
which is wonderful, because only a filmmaker would think that critics are trying to send them secret messages.
Yes, exactly, yeah. But equally, Price gets the brilliant speech about destroying people's lives, and you can't create yourself, so you have to you destroy everyone's lives. And it's very sort of satisfying to hear that side of it, because you don't really hear it very often, especially in being killed. I was very intrigued when the National did a play version of it.
I heard
2005, Jim Broadbent was Lionheart.
Oh my!
And Rachel Sterling played Edwina, so the daughter of Diana Rigg.
I could watch that.
And it was good. I went to see it. I was so excited to see it. In fact, we were asked to sort of be consultants on it. It was, and we didn't quite ever get involved in it because we weren't fully convinced that it would work as a play. And it was good, but it wasn't. Just wasn't the film. You could never do it. The theatre looked brilliant. They'd sort of created a very old, broken down proscenium arch for the National, and Jim Broadbent was good, but he sort of misfired, I felt, because he played Lionheart as a bad actor. So he was really deliberately sort of mangling the speeches, and it was a little bit. I think Vincent Price got it right, because he did it for real. He tried to do the speeches at the best, and they were very moving, and it was great. But I think he sort of just played a parody of an actor, and it was a bit too. It was an easy sort of choice, I think, to make, and it didn't quite work. I was interested to see how critics would respond to it if I was reviewing it, thinking, dare we not review it because we're killed. But it was they slightly changed it. It was more about theatre. It was like reviewers for various newspapers like the Times and the Guardian, and they were being picked off one by one. They killed less people, wasn't it?
Really?
Yeah, they didn't do the Othello, they got rid of a few of the deaths, but it was fine. It was a slightly unsatisfying evening, I felt.
I would think. I mean, I think the greatest tightrope walk in the film is that we can't tell if Lionheart is terrible or good.
Yeah,
half the time.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah,
it's because that in itself is a Hamlet reference.
Yes, yeah.
But North by Northwest.
Yeah,
and having Price, if nothing else, be delivering when he's doing those speeches.
Yeah.
It's all about how they're received, and they're going to seem terrifying and also moving. The idea that he can work emotion into it, because we ultimately know where he's coming from. Like, he is the wronged. He's lashing out, shall we say?
Yes,
he's deliberately overreacting, but he is wronged and feels that he is. All the great villains are the ones who think they're right.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he's. I think you are always on his side. Interestingly, we had it's such. I mean, what's great about that film is that it's so of its time, and that cast are great and all in their prime. They'll even down to Dinah Rigg. Dinah Dawes having that great part as the cuckolding wife, even though she's not. She's just having a massage.
Right.
But
that is, again, that's a joke that would have to be very different in a presentation.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But David Warner told me, because we had him in a Number 9, he was in the League of Gentlemen film as well, but he told me the other day, very casually, it was literally only the other day, he was meant to be the Ian Hendry part. He was offered the parts of Sultry, and it would have been great to have him, because then it would absolutely, him in that part being the young youngest of the critic circle, the Hamlet of his generation, playing that part, but he couldn't do it. He was doing the play. So we got Ian Hendry. It was also brilliantly, iconically 70s as well, and he's great in the part. But I was like, yes, I can see that. And you'd have had David in his prime, and when he was looking like David Warner,
Right. But Ian Hendry looks like a critic.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Hendry looks like a writer.
He does. Yeah.
Slightly unkempt, a little balding.
Yes, he's perfect.
In there. Yep.
Yeah. No, he's great. But it's forever endlessly watchable. I think just for the performances, they're all great in it. It's lovely to see. I like right back to Magnificent Men in the Flying Machines, or the Monte Carlo or Bus, where you have teams of people,
right.
And that in a similar way, this film ticks that box for me. That you get these great character actors that you sort of dip in and out of, and each one gets their bit. It's great. I'd love to, if it was. The game is to play it now and think who you'd cast in those parts, isn't it?
Of course. Well, it is a game I play with anything older than the mid '80s.
Yeah.
Just generally. And
what would it be now?
Who would be your Lionheart? Where would you?
Yeah, I know.
There was Branagh, obviously.
Yeah,
but he's almost a little too young.
Yeah, possibly a little bit too young. Yeah, and maybe like McKellen would be too old. Yeah.
Oh, Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart would be good. Derek Jacobi, maybe.
He's little though. Could you believe it visually?
Yeah, and you want someone with a bit more clout, don't you? Yeah, it'd be hard. There was talk. I remember hearing that it could have been complete rumour that Robin Williams had some interest in doing it.
Really?
Yeah, in playing, because it's a delicious part to play all those characters, isn't it? In when you're doing the Shakespeare. I don't know whether that's true or not. And I know Steve Coogan as well had an interest in. I think had the rights for a bit.
That would make sense.
That would be quite good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Especially after Dr. Terrible.
Absolutely.
He could pull the period off. And I think you'd have to do it in period. I don't know that you could do it now.
No, it'd be a slightly different thing, wouldn't it?
You wouldn't believe the critics have the power to ruin anyone.
No. It wouldn't be critics in the same way. It would be some blogger, wouldn't it? It'd be somebody online that you track down like a troll.
Yeah, and then you're tilting into Seven territory where everything is Baroque. Although I suppose Saw, again, that is the device.
Yeah.
But the idea of...
But everyone's a critic these days.
Yeah, so you'd never run out of bodies, exactly. That could be fun.
Yeah.
But the material, the concept is rock solid.
Yeah.
I mean, it is as old as Shakespeare. Like the idea
it actually is, yeah, it's great.
Seeking revenge.
Yeah, and they, in its own way, it in itself, enacting those Shakespeare's being housed in the idea of a series of Shakespearean deaths is in itself Shakespearean.
Exactly.
He's a Shakespearean character.
Yeah.
Well, great drama of it.
While I was watching it just this last time, I realized that what's missing is the Tempest.
Yeah.
But... he is Prospero.
Yes,
and
he sort of is.
And the meth drinkers are Caliban, collectively.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that was intentional.
Yeah.
It's just, you start to see the patterns. And
absolutely,
you start to see
yeah. I mean, it's when he does Brave New World, is that the Tempest, isn't it? And that's when he...
just that one line.
I think
right?
it's, well, at least it's a line from it, isn't it? When he emerges in the mud, when you've thought he's died.
Yeah, maybe that's why I made the connection,
perhaps,
too.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, it's definitely there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
Michael Fassbender could play Hendry's role. So you've got nerd cred for Patrick Stewart and McKellen and Fassbender in the same film as rivals and
yes.
See,
that would be great.
It sells itself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great plot and a great device, and what a cast you could create with it. It's sort of on a place, isn't it, to be remade? I'm surprised no one's thought of it.
Yeah.
But you're right, it would need a rethink, I think, how to... couldn't quite be the same thing, because the targets are... Yeah, the parameters have changed, haven't they, now? So everyone is a... Unless it was just NASA. I mean, I remember I had a conversation with Coogan about it, and he was saying, I want the scene where he's got the critic tied up, and he's got his review, and he's saying, you said there are many reasons why this doesn't work. Just give me 3, and I won't kill you. And he's sort of like literally having the argument with the person trying to justify his words.
Yeah.
And it could be a very funny scene. It's like
you cast the right people.
Yeah.
At this point, Coogan could play the Henry role.
Yeah.
And have the right authority.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, he could. I think he would want to be Lionheart.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think everybody wants to be Lionheart.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, too.
There's a bit of Lionheart in everyone, I think.
Yeah. For everyone who's ever felt that they were not just given the right consideration or given the appreciation.
Yeah.
It's Yeah, I'm on his side.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And you're a critic.
I am. But it's the thing that, yeah, this is obviously my own drum to beat, but the thing that the film misses is that, hashtag not all critics. We're not, we're not the worst people.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I mean, I know there are people who do enjoy just going after things. And hating, but that's no way to live. Like, if you're actually going to do this
exactly, yeah. When you think it's mean-spirited or just relentlessly negative, you think... I think you can sniff that out quite quickly, can't you, in the reviewer? You think that's not really considered. The worst ones are when you don't... with theatre performances, for example, where everyone is laughing and you think, well, this isn't actually true. You think you were not in the... I don't mind it when they say everyone around me was laughing, but I found it this or that, because then you think, well, at least it hasn't worked for you, whatever it is. But you've conceded to the fact that night everyone seemed to be enjoying it.
Right.
Sort of a skewing of events is when you think actually not. I suppose it's how it affects the person, isn't it? You must be allowed your own opinion.
Mm-hmm. I've always tried to evaluate things from their chosen footing. Yeah. If you want to make a comedy and you have succeeded at that, it doesn't matter if I don't like it. If everybody else did, I'll acknowledge this.
Yes, yeah. There has to be some concession, I suppose. No one sets out to make something rubbish, do they?
Yeah. No, I believe that. I think that's actually something people forget.
Yeah. It's easy to forget, I think, in the mix. Because it's you can easily be vitriolic about things, but you think, well, they thought they were doing the greatest work, It's hard. It's a hard thing when when I'm just an actor in someone else's thing, it's such a weight of responsibility taken away because it's not my thing. I can be the best I can be in it, but that's the end of the matter for me. Right. I leave at night, and then when someone else is worried about making the day and getting the shots in, and then ultimately when it's presented to the world and you're not responsible. But when it's myself and Steve's thing, like number 9, and you have that build-up of it, daring to present it to the world again, and have we done it again, or have we managed to? Because it's you sort of can only arrive and surprise the first time you do it, and then you're sort of always doing the thing you are known for potentially. I mean, I think we try to be we're very mindful of repeating ourselves, and especially with the number 9s, which is like. These anthology stories, it's such a high turnover of ideas potentially. By the end of this 4th series, which we're filming now, there'll be 24 pilots. Yeah, and that's a lot of ideas and a lot of worlds to continually create.
Right. Well, you're not working in. It's not sketch comedy where you move on quickly. You're basically shooting a feature every week.
Each week, and it starts again. It resets, and that in itself is the reason why I think commissioners have found the anthology series, which is a very maligned beast, difficult to countenance, I think, on TV. It's why you don't get them anymore. The received wisdom is no one will watch a thing that ends and then there's no reason to return to it. It's no hook. Right. The very thing that they are is the reason why no one likes them. But I think those rules are only in the minds of commissioners. I think normal people just watch a thing and they don't have these things in their head, and if it's good they will return to it, And Steve and I, anyway, are the thing that's sort of across them, another hook. Right. Because our dark-ish sensibility is the thing that I think you would be buying into if you wanted to watch it again the next week. But it is hard, writing one series with a set of characters that then go over the 6. Much easier, in a way, because you know what they do and you know who they are. I heard via someone that was on a panel when number 9 was being judged for an award, that someone from a certain television channel said, the thing about these anthology shows is they're easy. You can just... And it's much harder writing a thing where the characters develop, and I was thinking, you've got no idea. It's the hardest thing in the world, because you are resetting and starting again. You've got to do it again each week. So I want to kill him.
That's good. That's fair. I think you've earned it. There is that thing, that weird... I mean, they're basically... you can see it as a feature, you can see it as a short film. There are all sorts of ways to contextualize an anthology series that aren't derogatory. And no one seems to have a problem with Black Mirror being Black Mirror.
Yes, exactly, yeah. I mean, that's Absolutely, that's a great example.
But maybe that's because that's a recognizable brand, and that's the trick. That
Yeah, it could be, or maybe it's the tone that that sort of strange futuristic world that they all sort of inhabit gets past the idea in people's minds that it is this different every week. That's your hook.
right.
Ours, number nines are completely different every week. There's always
Even tonally.
some of them, totally different. Some of them much very silly, and some of them very psychological, and others very, almost like Alan Ayckbourn, very play-like and sort of domestic. And then you get, Pinteresque ones. So we are very happy to complete, and also with how we make that television program as well. We've played with the form as well. We tried to do. We did the silent episode where we didn't speak for that week, and we've done one in the full series. I haven't filmed it yet, but we've done one that plays with the time frame. It's a bit like the Seinfeld episode. We start at the end and we work back.
Okay.
So,
and how do you? With Seinfeld at least, I suppose Pinter did it with Betrayal. I guess it's not impossible, but you're introducing characters we've never seen before.
Yeah.
With Seinfeld, the joke is in the reactions that we already expect.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of it was thinking of things that you would. A trick I think we pull a few times is the idea of you've seen something, you think you know how that could have happened, and then when you see the reveal of how it did happen, when you go back another 10 minutes, it's a surprise. That is where you get your surprise. Okay. You think, oh, that's not how I thought they would get there with that, So, and to do that with this story as well, it was a really complicated one to write. But we're sort of pushing the boat out with trying to do extraordinary things with this full series. So yeah, it's an enjoyable thing. Who gets to do it? It's like a play box. Each week, when we started writing the full series, we'd written about 4 or 5 of them. I think we had one left to do, and we were a bit stumped. We thought, what haven't we done? Because it starts to feel like we've done sort of a facet of everything.
Yeah.
And Steve said, we're in the position of writing anything we want for television. It was quite an amazing thing to me to suddenly realise that, who gets that? And we're so undiluted as well. No one. We don't have a script editor. We write them and they are made. It's an incredible privilege, I think. No one ever really says, we can't really do that. Well, that's a little bit, we need can this change? Because they're so tightly written and their own thing, to present them to someone and someone go, I don't like that bit. It's like, well, I'm sorry, that's what it is. Yeah. You can't really get your claws into it. And I think we've had that for a lot of our careers. And League of Gentlemen was so sure of itself when it arrived, because we'd honed it and worked it on stage for so many years. It was very... it arrived and we hit the ground running, It was very... And that, I think, is what's wrong with a lot of things. You get that terrible thing of when you look at a new comedy or a new piece of work and you think, that was probably good once, and now they've had a few goes at trying to cater for everyone, and then catering for no one.
Well, you see things playing down into just a kind of a monochrome version of themselves.
Yeah.
Where all the colors are shaved off, where the actors have been told not to do a certain thing, and so they're trying so hard not to do that it infects the rest of the performance.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
It's well, with the League of Gentlemen, and as with Theatre of Blood, there's this sense that it's going to explode into something absolutely ludicrous at any moment, but it never does.
Yeah.
And the control is what makes it so disturbing.
Absolutely, yeah, I guess
even in a comic context with the League of Gentlemen, it's something that I had never seen before.
Yes, one of the most... the League was probably at its best when it was live, I think, because we would have palpable discomfort in the audience, and we preyed on it, and it was great to sort of bring people to the absolute brink of... It was like an endurance test, we have such horrible sketches that became so uncomfortable to watch, and then that turn when you would allow them finally to have the release of laughing, because a punchline would happen, and that was a delicious thing to always play with. And I think we were at our best when those moments were happening. It was slightly... We tried to do it with the TV versions of those sketches, which worked very well live, but there was nothing more sort of powerful than Steve Pemberton playing Pauline to the audience. They suddenly were the restart room, and he would play them. He was a great performer, Steve, and those moments were fantastic on stage. But that was what we were trying to do. That thing where you really... can't quite fathom how you arrive at such an extreme situation from something apparently so mundane initially, like a meal in an Indian restaurant. That's a man pulls a gun out to trying to get a joke right, you know. Yeah. And I think that was the formula we often would do. You know, that we would do something quite ordinary and we'd take it to the most ridiculous extremes. Doing it with Number 9, even this series with it, the paying of a bill becomes a huge, massive argument, you know. And it is sort of, and I think, you know, you're grounded in something that's very gettable. You know, people have been in the situation of arguing about paying a bill. So if you're in that world, you know it. You've got a hook and a vested sort of. The stakes are higher, aren't they? Because you've had that experience yourself. And I think we strive, however grotesque the characters may be, to have a kernel of truth about them. And I think that's where everything suddenly matters more. And I think the film is going back to the film. It's sort of like that in that film. You get. It's very moving, a lot of the film as well. That speech when he does the Hamlet speech when he's on the balcony, and his daughter comes in and says, "You're only making them hurt you more," and it's a very moving moment, I think, when he does his "To Be or Not to Be," and they all watch him jump to his death. And that thing where you get sudden pangs at your heart as well, we've tried to do in our work. People were very moved by the episode with Shearsmith last season that we did called The 12 Days of Christine, which is I think people were surprised that they felt that we managed to upset so many people in a way that was, you know, I don't think people expect us to have heart.
Yeah.
We have a black soul, black piece of coal there instead, like the Grinch. But so I think it was a surprise to people that we could do it, that we did it and that we could do it. So it was a lovely thing to have that, because I think of all of the Number 9s that we've done, that stayed with people the most, I think. And it's not particularly funny, but it was sort of a good one for doing something that we don't normally do. And I think Steve wants to do a romantic comedy one, you know, that would be really. The twist would be that it would be that. Okay, yeah. It wouldn't be at all horrible. It would be actually quite sweet.
I mean, that's certainly not impossible.
Yeah, no, it's not impossible. And it would be quite interesting to see if we can do it. Our problem is we try to write obvious comedy, or not obvious comedy. You know, it's not that easy to write any kind of comedy, but to write something broader, and we always find it's lacking if we don't have some extraordinary dramatic turn or something that just sort of takes you by surprise on. And I think it's that thing that we've always wanted to do, from watching Don't Look Now and Wicker Man and things that completely pull the rug from under you. Right. That's when it makes you sit up, isn't it? When you think, I did not expect that. And I think that leaning into something is the thing that we always try to sort of. We're fans of our own thing, and I think we really try to sort of bring an element of you've really got to sit up and watch this properly. You know, there is comedy and there's programs that you can lean back and it's in the background and the laugh track tells you it's a comedy and it washes over you, but our things are very much more demanding, you know. I think that's just the way that we are with the things that we enjoy.
But that makes it more interesting. I mean,
yeah.
Speaking just as an audience member, I want to be pulled in,
yeah,
rather than told that I don't have to give my full attention to something.
Yeah.
And even with, I mean, there are plenty of comedies that I watch for pleasure, but I know that I'm not being challenged is probably the wrong word, but well, maybe not. I mean, there are things that don't require me.
Yeah. And
they'll just function in the background. Whatever they're doing.
Yes, exactly. No, it's great when you think, wow, they're really not talking down to us here. You know, we've really got to keep up. Yeah. And to dare to have a few moments where you are not told what. You might be a bit confused. You know, that thing that most commissioners and script editors dread, where you are told to recap every 2 minutes in case you might be going to the toilet or you've gone out to make a sandwich and you come back and you sense literally that you are being retold the whole thing again and again and again. Terrible storytelling.
Now, if you did something that played on that, if you actually use gaps in time,
that would be quite good.
I wonder if you could pull that off. I wonder if conceptually people would.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I've just done this play, The Dresser, in the West End.
Oh yeah.
And you know that weird madness of theatre where night upon night you have the opportunity of thinking, why nothing tonight on that bit, and yesterday through the roof. Who are these people? You know what? That strange very quick collective decision that an audience creates and have an identity, and you think, I don't understand. It's like they've all whispered, right? We're all going to hate it, pass it.
Yeah.
And they have that, and very quickly you can tell, and it's that permission. It's maybe an early laugh or something that gives everyone relaxes, and you think, oh, we're all right now, and suddenly then it catches fire. Other times it simply doesn't, or they think they really enjoy it. At the end, you think, who are you? You've made it so hard all the way through. Now you're clapping. So I wish you'd been with me during it. I would have had it'd been so much more easy for me. But and that's a really odd thing to sort of tussle with, the idea that, it's not. Is it that delicate? I often think it's not that finite. That a slight thing here or there. I think there's a broad version of everything that sort of lands. Your friends come back afterwards and say it was great, and you think it was an absolutely worst performance ever, and they thought it was brilliant. It's really strange. It's obviously a skewed version of events when you're doing it and you're in it. You can't really tell the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
Well, that thing of what's his face? Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry
David
going out and just going no, walking off again when he looks at just to look at the audience and decide you're not for me. Rather the other way around.
Yeah. It's always strange for me to see live theater because there was a performance of 12 Angry Men about 10 years ago, I think, that I saw, maybe 8, that had Richard Thomas from the Waltons in the lead, and the film is this tense, taut experience, and the play was received as though it was an episode of Friends.
Right.
They were laughing at everything because all of the insults in the film, all of the attempts to leverage power, now read like Chandler and Joey.
Right.
And it was bizarre.
Wow.
But it instantly made sense that this is how it was being understood by a contemporary audience. And no one could have predicted that when the play was written.
No.
And the racism didn't land.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're really vague about certain things, and that the play itself is really vague about certain things, didn't work.
Right.
Because now we can talk about all those things, and it was just odd and proper.
Yes.
That things were being discussed. Cultures change, texts don't. The dresser, I think, is almost preserved because theatre is still theatre.
Yes, yeah. And in a way, I guess it still landed as an idea. I mean, even if it was an old-fashioned thing that we don't get anymore, this idea of the actor-manager, which is, again, like line art, going back to the film.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's, it's of its time, certainly, but it works, that play particularly, because I think it's about people and that strange relationship. No, it's a horrible play. It's quite funny play. Norman's quite a funny character, and I played Norman, and Ken Stott was Sir. And it was very, it was a real tour de force for both of us to play those parts. It was great, and but by the end, a brutal, very devastating ending. That whole thing where he realises he's given his life to a man that doesn't particularly care. And that, I think, resonates with a lot of people. There's lots of people. I had lots of letters from people that would say, I'm a carer of my mother, and this relationship, I know it so well. And it was I think it was very cathartic for people to see that bottomless pit, that leaky bucket of not being able to, of nothing reciprocated, And I think that's a lot of people's lives.
Well, that is the great reveal of the dresser too. Like once you understand what it is, and
absolutely.
that it isn't even a metaphor, that's simply the relationship.
Yeah,
it becomes incredibly moving.
It was funny. Ronald Harwood, who's still alive, he came to the play. He was very complimentary. He liked it. He said, "Are you getting on with Ken?" I said, "Yeah, we see." He said, "Because the Normans and the Sirs don't." I thought that's really interesting. He said it's like Salieri and Mozart.
Oh, I suppose
the actors don't get on. And it's interesting because they're just combative, all the time, and I think I could see how that could happen, it's but we were all right, but
well, especially if you're doing it every night.
Yeah, you've got to get on. Yeah, it's hard. Theatre's hard like that.
Yeah,
can't have a war on stage.
No. I'm just thinking about the impossibility of doing theatre of blood on stage.
Yeah,
as you're talking about it, it could be. No,
you could. I mean, that national version attempted it, but it didn't quite do what that film did. I mean, it wasn't funny enough as well. I seem to recall. I think it's. I think they slightly threw away that brilliant idea of having 10 of them. I think there's 10 in the critics' circle, or maybe something like that. But it just wasn't enough killings.
Yeah, you really.
They did some good visual. They did some nice magic tricks. I think they killed the electrocution. I remember was quite good. the head turn into a skeleton. But yeah, I'm not sure it ever could match the film for being so. It's kind of perfect. I think you wouldn't want to tamper with it, would you?
Yeah, structurally, I mean, as one of you says on the commentary track, it is. There's no fat on it.
Yeah,
it is murder bit.
Yeah, it really is, and even and very judicious use of the ongoing police investigation as well, which is really well done. And sort of the bit I think, if you're trying to write it, it's the bit that you'd be least interested in because you've got to have it in the background, but they're getting no nearer. But it's done very well. It's woven in and out very, very easily, isn't it? It's sort of there, but not. And they don't advance themselves, and in fact they're foolish. They're stupid.
Yeah.
In there, it's great to have Eric Sykes in that part as well.
Yes, and they think they're smarter than him when in reality, of course, he's playing it.
Yeah, he's one ahead. Yeah.
And the best thing about all of these movies, especially the ones from the late 60s and early 70s, is how gleeful the villainy is. He has not only worked this out, he has worked it out to the point where he can play on Meridu's vanity to put on a cooking show.
Absolutely,
and, outsmart the police simply by clocking someone over the head. I mean, it's really it's the simple solutions and these elegant flourishes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and nice little touches when he parks Eric Sykes on the railway track and you can hear the train come and get him. Sort of it's so horrible, but it's very funny, blackly comic in the best way, I think.
Yes, I can hear a train. It's definitely a train.
A train. Yeah, it's great.
So weird and formal.
Yeah,
but yeah, if you remade it now, it would have to be a film. It would have to be in period. I don't think there is a contemporary analog.
No, it would sort of be based on an idea, wouldn't it? It'd be a vague idea of someone having a beef with people writing bad reviews or online about them. I think you just couldn't quite do it in the same way. Like you say, it doesn't land in the same way. The power of the critic. Maybe it does. I mean, I don't know about it's that great bit, isn't there, in Birdman with them, Lindsay Duncan.
Oh, don't get me started on Birdman. No, and not just because of the critics stuff.
Yeah, well, no, I'm only thinking about that bit. I like the bit where he sort of confronts her and she's horrible in the bar,
which
the sort of faux version of. I don't know whether they have that power anymore on Broadway.
I don't think they
not
do.
Quite the same thing.
There's an episode of Taxi, of all things, where Jeff Conaway's character is put into a rivalry with a critic who goes to see him, and at the end of the episode writes a favorable review of his performance and then tears it up in front of him and says no one's ever going to read that. Right. And all you can think of is, but you had to file. You have to write there. You can't. It's a great emotional beat, but it makes no sense in the real world.
Yes, yeah.
And Birdman, to me, every beat of that is the same. And then the scene with Lindsay Duncan, she's actually not wrong.
Yes.
She is saying things that are entirely valid, although she's perceived as the villain by the movie.
Yes, yeah.
Because Inarritu has clearly had a speech like this in his head for 10 years.
To vent it, yeah.
Yeah. He clearly wants to do things that no one else has done before, but he doesn't understand that the reason no one has done these things is because they're not necessary.
Right.
Just The Revenant, for example, that could have been an hour shorter.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have been the same film.
Yeah.
But it would have been the pulp kind of story that it seems to want.
Yeah.
But that's just me being pissy.
Yeah.
But to wrap up, and we've already sort of covered this, but I think it's worth hitting head on. Is there anything of Theatre of Blood that you've specifically used or borrowed or stolen or absorbed into?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there are lines, I believe, that have been left.
I think definitely yes. The first killing with Michael Horden when he's trying to get the meth drinkers out of the old tenement building. Mm-hmm. He's pushing them all with his brolly, and he says, "We'll have no trouble here," which completely is became Edward from the local shop in Lincoln Junction. We used it. Hello, what's going on? We'll have no trouble here. That was stolen. And then in Psychoville, we had the characters of Maureen and David, when David was a sort of would-be serial killer, and his mum was egging him on, and they think that they've killed someone, and they think that there's a set of people that have seen the murder. So they in turn start to kill them, try to get rid of the evidence. And one of the women, they go, played by Janet McTeer, they go and they pretend to be in a beauty salon, and they give her a makeover, and they Electrocutor, very much like
straight out of
Cole. Yeah, completely. So there's a lot of stealing going on in that, from that film into homage, as some people would say, but it's sort of stealing.
But it never goes away, does it? The thing that you love about something, you find ways to celebrate.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's you don't mind when it comes from a place of love. I think lots of what we've done, especially League of Gentlemen, was just even the hue of some of the coloration of some of the scenes that we did. We specifically said we want it to look like 10 Rillington Place, a green hue to this. And that sensibility, especially with Steve Bendler, who directed it, who just knew, right, so this is The Shining, or this is Salem's Lot, and we'd say it was like that bit from all the time. And I think we just perpetuate the TV that we enjoyed by trying to make it again. That's what we're doing now with the number 9s. They're like Nigel Neal or Beasts or any of these things that we sort of grew up with, and it's people that finally in the position of being able to make it, perpetuating it, in keeping the flame alive for people to know and remember.
Would you try? Could you do? I was thinking. If you have license to do anything, could you do Theatre of Blood as a number 9? Is it possible?
Yes. Well, you could do a small, possibly. And we've done one in the 3rd season. It's the last one that's going to go out, called Private View, and it's about an art gallery, and a set of people are invited to a private view at this art gallery, and they start to get picked off one by one. Yeah. So it's a mini Theatre of Blood in a way. It's and then they went on. It's one of those things where you think there's something connecting them, but you don't know what it is, and they all seem disparate people, but there's some greater thing that they've all done. So we've sort of done a little version of it, but it'd be great to do a full-on take of something like that. Teams of people, like Legend of Hell House, when you get these parapsychologists meeting and all at loggerheads. It's great. Me and Mark Gatiss have always wanted to do a haunted house film.
A proper
exactly like that, yeah. If we were ever going to do a League film, I think it would be a full-on horror, and it's some sort of probably small budget, but you could do it in a reputed haunted house with a team of investigators. It's sort of been done to death now, but we've talked about it for so many years that it possibly could come around again. You could get it right. It'd be great, wouldn't it?
And that's the title: Done to Death.
Done to Death.
You've got it.
Yes, that's it. Brilliant. Use it.
My thanks to Reece Shearsmith, who you can and should see in Inside Number 9, the 3rd series of which is newly available on Blu-ray and DVD in the UK on the BBC label. The first series has made it to iTunes in North America, but sadly that's it so far. Oh, and thanks also to Alice Lowe. She knows what she did. You can follow Reece on Twitter at Reece Shearsmith, all one word, and you can find Theatre of Blood on Blu-ray and DVD in the UK with a League of Gentlemen commentary track from Arrow Video. In North America, it's available on Blu-ray from Twilight Time and DVD from MGM Home Entertainment. You can also find it on iTunes. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you want to leave a review on iTunes, that would be very kind of you. Let's try to make it a positive one. Your life may depend on it. Thanks for listening.